this whole time.
Hi, I'm Aaron Tornberg, and I'm here at the Northeast Regional Folk Alliance in Asbury Park, New Jersey, with members of One Broadway Collaborative and some guests who are from NERFA, who showed up to this conference. They're not from NERFA, but we'll learn more about them as we go along with the show. I've got Claudia Gibson right here. And Lucas, I forgot what you changed your name to.
Lucas Maehara.
Maehara, okay. Lucas Maehara, who had a different name that I won't say. But
It can be said.
And where are you from, Claudia?
I'm from Austin, Texas. Originally from New York,
Austin.
but yeah. Been out there about 16, 17 years. Oh, wow.
That's great. Austin's actually a perfect town for music, so you're in the right place, I think.
It's a good music town, yes, it is.
Bet there's lots of places to play. And
there are, but you know, post-COVID, for people like us, yeah, they're kind of shrinking. So,
are they?
Singer-songwriter folks.
Yeah, venues are shrinking. Real estate's more expensive. It's like everywhere. Yeah. But it's a great town. There's a lot of great players, and it's fun.
And Lucas, where are you?
I reside in Brooklyn, New York, and I do spend a lot of time in upstate New York as well. So I sort of like do a lot of my music between New York City and sort of upstate.
Oh, well, my parents live in Syracuse, so.
Oh, not quite that upstate, but.
Oh,
yes,
not quite? Okay. Because I wouldn't mind seeing you sometime if you happen to be out there.
All right.
But what we talk about on this show is performing. That's really our basic discussion, which it's a pretty broad topic, but we try to get into what it's like to go out there and do what we do. I am a performer as well, and I perform with Taina, who has been on the show already. She's in the back here watching. But we came from Lawrence, Massachusetts to the Folk Alliance to kind of get some other musicians interested in coming to Lawrence and joining us in our venue. And also to hear other people that we don't normally get to hear. So what I usually like to do is I start with a song at the beginning of the show. So Claudia, would you like to start with a song for us?
I would. And this song actually takes place in New York State, way upstate New York, in the North Country, where my grandfather was from, in Shazy Landing, New York, near Champlain. He was a farmer, and I only knew him very briefly when I was very young, as an accordion player, and I would dance when he played, and that was about it, because he died when I was a small child. But this song is called The Fields of Shazy.
Heart was in the North Country.
Were you ever up there?
Oh yeah, that's kind of like, my grandpa was Joe Thibodeau, my maiden name was Thibodeau. And he was a farmer, he was a tenant farmer, he never owned his own property. But when I went up there a few years ago to see his grave and my grandmother's grave, I saw another name on the gravestone, and it was Albina. And then I remembered my dad saying years ago, oh, Grandpa was married like for a short time before Grandma. And she died in childbirth. And we found her little grave. And then when we went over to Shazy, my cousin had said, look for Grandpa's apple trees. And I said, well, how am I going to know them? He said, you'll know them, you'll know them. And we drove down to the landing, and I looked out the window, and they were these like 100-year-old, really ancient apple trees. Because he was a lot older by the time he got his second marriage. So I saw these trees, and I was like, those are Grandpa's apple trees. And it was sort of it was kind of a little epiphany, because I felt like there was something for this man that I didn't really know, except for he gave me music at a very young age. And but there was something of him that I could touch. And he never had a dime to his name, but there was something really, really visceral there that I could touch, and it was awesome.
The imagery in that song.
Thank you.
Marvelous.
Well, so what is your background with the music?
Oh.
How did you get into that?
It's very, very, well, I mean, I always played music. I picked up guitar when I was about 10, because my mom couldn't afford the cello for the orchestra program. She was a single mom. And so I started playing. I started playing in bars in New York, in southern New York, in Rockland County. And when I was 18, and I went to college for music up in New Paltz, and then went down to the city after that and pursued having a rock band for a while. And back then you had to get signed.
What was the name?
It was just my own name,
Oh, it wasn't like...
No, I didn't really have a name. But I worked with my partner, and but it just never really happened. And so when I got married and I had kids, and I just moved away and kind of left it behind until my kids were small, and I picked up a guitar and started writing again. But it wasn't until a few years ago, after we'd moved to Austin, when they were all out of the house, that I started really saying, okay, I have to do this. It was like I couldn't not do it anymore, because I was getting depressed and miserable, and so I just started going out again, really out of practice, to open mics, like all shaking and nervous, and worked my way up. And some nice things started happening after a couple of years, and things were really looking up. And 2019, it seemed like I'm just about to get over into getting better gigs. And then of course I had I had some nice gigs for summer of 2020, but we all know what happened.
Right.
So yeah, but I'm still out there, and I got a new album coming out in February.
Do you have some previous albums already out?
I do. I have one that was my first album was late 2016, early 2017. Was produced by a guy named Gordy Quist, who has an Americana band called the Band of Heathens, a wonderful band. And then the year after that, an EP that he also produced. So yeah, a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
So
where do you perform?
I perform, most recently I perform around Austin. I've also gone to, different places in Texas, like Houston, Dallas. I've gone to New Mexico. And I always do well when I come back to New York State, because I have family there.
Right, and they show up.
They show up. I have family, friends. They're like, oh great, So I've sold out close to selling out a small theater, in New York, just in Cold Spring, where I lived for many years. I'm near Beacon, yeah. So I don't know where you're from, but it's the Depot Theater. It was nice little theater. So I'll play anywhere. I mean, I've played horrible places, like 4-hour gigs at wineries, but they're not horrible places. It's just horrible playing for 4 hours. But yeah, and I have a monthly series out in Austin at a small place. It's called the First Sunday Songwriters, and we bring in different songwriters. They're always great. I'm always amazed they want to do it, and they come in and we play and talk, and it's fun.
Cool. So, where do you perform usually? You're in Brooklyn, so.
I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah, I've actually I do perform in New York City. before the pandemic, I had a band made up of fellow school teachers like myself, because I'm 30 years in the New York City public school system. And so I would always ask them to give me, like the gigs that were sort of like, no, don't give me the 10:30. Don't give me 10:30, because I'm waking up at 5:30.
I work in school too.
And all the people who are going to come out are who can come in and sort of like jump in and play with me sometimes too. So I spend a lot of time up in Sullivan County, New York. Not quite as upstate as but there's a lot of music in Sullivan County because, well, it was the home of Woodstock, right? So the area that I sort of do a lot of playing in is around Bethel, New York, right? And so there's a town called Calhoun, and it's got a really burgeoning sort of songwriting scene and music scene there, and then a couple of incredible open mics, and really great venue called Rafters Tavern, which is really created by a songwriter and musician who we went to Nashville together. And when we went to Nashville, we went to the Bluebird Cafe, and we were like amazed to walk in there and like, nobody's talking. This is unbelievable. We don't understand this. And then his goal was to sort of create that sort of scene on the Delaware. And it's been a hard road, but he's done some really great work in building the community in Sullivan County. So I usually play there, but I like coming to things like NERFA because I want to sort of connect with other musicians and find other places that might want to have somebody like me as well. So.
Yeah. Well, so the show's about performing, and you mentioned shuttered venues, both of you. That's been a big problem, and as an owner of a venue that started in the middle of COVID,
Oh boy, you're brave.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
That all the venues shuttered and then I opened up. But I feel like this is an important thing to have a venue that's a listening room, that really is a place you can focus on the music, like the Bluebird Cafe, because it's very hard to find those. Most of the time, the musicians I talk to, and I go to open mics, they're all at bars or UU churches. Mm-hmm. So there's no in between, right? There's either the UU church where the UU church does a specific monthly thing.
Right.
But in terms of a regular place where you can go hear music casually, there aren't a lot of them. There's Club Passim in Boston area, which is where I am, except we're about a half hour north. So what we do is similar. We try to get people local to come in and perform, but also folk musicians around the area. And we're trying to kind of merge the two worlds. I call it acoustifying. We're kind of taking hip-hop and other music and trying to make it folk.
Oh, I love that.
Because it is. Yeah. Everything is.
And they had that discussion today. I don't know if you went to the panel. Were you at the...
I was actually the one who made the panel.
He was the panel, yeah.
The panel that was talking about protest music.
I didn't go to protest music.
Okay, well...
Yeah. Did they talk about it?
Yeah, and it was really interesting. They were talking exactly about that because the discussion was, where does the protest music in folk exist? And and we were sort of going back and forth about sort of like the history of it, say in the 60s and some of the 70s, and how that has sort of shifted. But now how you sort of see, you listen to any hip hop song, right? And it has political content. And you sometimes have to search the folk world. Sometimes you have to search a little harder than you used to back in the day. So it was a very interesting conversation.
That's pretty cool.
So I was thinking about, the work that you guys are doing and that Taina's doing as well. Sort of like, and I think you guys are onto something really very powerful.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that the power of protest is anger, right? It's you have to get angry enough to say something. And people don't always say something. They just go along and they try to live their lives without being a disturbance to the rest of society and accepting the status quo. Musicians don't have to. We can talk about how we don't accept it. This isn't.
We're on the outside already.
Right.
Where are we going to go?
Well, if you think you look back in the 60s, all of the protests, it was all fueled by music. It was music from the folk stuff to what was happening when my older sister was going to Vietnam era protests, and it was all all the music was all that too, and it was, it was really fueled. It was a movement, and I think, with the world being so messed up today, I think it would be great if, if people coming up and younger musicians really, and older musicians too, but especially younger musicians, use it as an outlet to kind of, say like, hey, this is messed up, here's what I think about it, and have it be really immediate in a kind of medium that they're going to understand, and it's true, it is true. Hip-hop musicians are all saying that, and it used to be like, they didn't want to say that in hip-hop, like the only one was like The Message, Grandmaster Flash, and there wasn't, it was kind of like, there was like the playful stuff, and then there was the serious stuff. But right. So that's pretty cool. That's cool.
Yeah, and when you look at some of the early rap too, I mean, it's hard stuff. I mean, it's very angry, and it should be.
Yeah.
Ice-T did, the thing against the police. I can't say the word. And Fight the Power by NWA and that kind of stuff. I mean, that stuff is protest music. And I wish, but see, in the folk world, it seems like we're stuck in this idea that is something else.
Yeah,
and
we
I
have to
don't
be
think
palatable,
it is.
maybe. I don't know. Like, we're just so desperate for gigs that we have to like be safe, or that just shut up and sing thing. I don't know.
Well, I'm finding that the melding has already been happening for quite some time.
Yeah.
Like if you go to an open mic in New York City, which I started to do again, you'll see loads of acoustic guitars and the young folks who are sort of like doing the music. You can count on at some point in their song, they're gonna the part of the song will be spoken word.
Yeah.
Right, will be sort of there will be some sort of hip hop poetry sort of put into music. I mean, I think that's where it's actually been going, and will continue to sort of go as we work to to break down the walls of segregation that exist in our music. I mean, in our whole world, but especially in the music. You just look at the way that music has been segregated: rock and roll, rhythm and blues, urban contemporary. I mean, it all has the same root. It all has the same root, and why. And so when these things come together, like what you guys are doing, it's very powerful and it's very natural, right? Because that's where music is supposed to be. It's supposed to be together.
Well, like Taina was brought up on some of that older stuff, like the R&B, and probably folk too. Did you listen to folk as well?
No, never.
She's like, what?
She didn't. Okay.
I feel like Taina should be part of this film.
Yeah. Well, she should be. Yeah, come on. So, why not? The reason I'm bringing up Taina is because she has a younger perspective.
Well, I think it's great. I just did recently a show in Austin, a SoFar show. SoFar's kind of cool in that they, I had never done one before, but they have much younger audiences than, if you go, especially in Austin, hi, nice to meet you. You go play, if you're in a listening room or a house concert, most of the people there, the audience is a lot older. So I did this show, I didn't know what to expect. I applied and they gave me a show at SoFar, and it was all different. I was an acoustic player. The guy after me was, he was like an R&B hip hop singer with a keyboard player with all these great effects. And then there was a rock band. The audience was young, they were like late 20s, maybe early 30s, and they really listened. And they were asking me these really interesting questions afterwards, like about my tunings and my subject, and all this kind of stuff. So I think sometimes whether it's venue owners or maybe just the general thing out there is like, oh, well, this is this, and this is that, and these audiences aren't going to want this. And it's like, if it's good music, that's why people like watching the Grammys, because it's like, oh, I didn't know about that. And there's all this crossover when you see like the hip hop guys playing with the rock, or the country guys. I always think that's really cool.
Well, what I learned is a lot of people in different genres that don't know about hip hop, they don't realize the amount of musicianship that goes into it. Like, it's not just noise, but people hear it that way if they're not listening. Like, you have to put your ears on and you have to listen to what it is. And what it is is very sophisticated beat making, and the time that they keep and the time signatures sometimes can really be complex. And the way that they intersperse voices and other things in hip hop is really excellent. I mean, particularly when it's produced well. And that's why it's been pretty easy to take, like, Taina's music is hip hop and it's got a beat, and you know, she worked with beat makers. And that's different from us working together, where I took what the beat was and I made it guitar chords, but guitar is just a rhythm instrument, so it really wasn't a stretch. So most of what I play is rhythm. What do you have as an experience that you could tell us? What's a difference that you've seen beat making and writing a song versus playing guitar and writing a song?
I feel like playing guitar and writing a song is a way more free, a free way of writing, because you can actually start, you know, creating chords as you're writing. You know what I'm saying? You'll play something and it'll make you feel a certain emotion. Whereas as if you're making a beat, it's such a wide selection of things to do, but usually a beat is made beforehand or after. So it's way easier to try to
you're working
write a
within
song.
that, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's way easier when you have an instrument to guide you as you're writing.
You know,
'Cause
you know
mess
the
around-
answer to this, right? Don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what if you were creating, could you create the beats yourself and then?
Yeah, you can. I personally don't make them myself. I
Yeah.
work with people that do make beats, but it's really hard when it's not
Yeah.
you doing it yourself,
Yeah.
because they may understand the idea you have, but to execute it, you know, sometimes you know best.
Yeah.
Right, and it's not like playing a drum.
No.
You know, I mean, it's finding the beat, which is a very specific sound.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the beat, it's, do you have distortion on the bass, and are you going to make the sound man crazy? Is that how much distortion you want, or do you want just a little distortion? You know, because I've had the experience of trying to get the bass to stop distorting, but that's the music. Like, and there's things like that that are just elements of the music that you wouldn't think of as a different kind of musician. So there really is a great skill to doing it properly.
Oh yeah, and I think the ones that are great, I mean, you know, they're just kind of like timeless. I mean, they're still using that Tupac California Love, they're using it for commercial now,
Yeah.
because that beat is so catchy. You know, you hear it, and you just go, yeah, you know, and it's like, you know, the stuff that is, I think it's really skilled to find, to create something that's going to be that catchy. And I was reading, was it about him, where he was like, early on, he wasn't getting the guys, like, he wasn't well known, and he wasn't getting the guys who were making the good beats, and you know, because they were giving it to other people, you know. So it seems like, yeah, you might be a little bit at the mercy of, like, can I get the really good one that I really want, or are they going to give it to someone else?
Right, that's a thing too. Like, you're not responsible for your own beat, so you have to be lucky enough to get the good beat, and then you have the song. Like, Taina writes great lyrics, but if you don't write good enough lyrics, the person who made the beat's going to be like, no, sorry, I'm going to give that to somebody whose lyrics are better. And you know, you've been very good at getting the right beat for you, but it's hard. I've seen them.
Picky.
That's good.
I'm very picky.
That's good.
But it gets difficult sometimes, you know, trying to find a nice beat to go along with the message you have. Like, there's songs I've been holding on to for years now because I haven't found, you know, the right rhythm for it. And I think it's very important to be a lyricist. No matter what type of artist you are, writing is very important. Because let's say you are given a beat, and that's the beat that you have to use. You know, beats are expensive. And it may not be the best beat, but what you say can impact how well the song does on its own. That's why you see a lot of people in the mainstream music is like really good beats but basic, you know, lyrics. It's because people are listening to the rhythm of the song. But now what our goal should be is trying to turn that around. It shouldn't matter about the beat of the song. It should be able to keep, you know, the person interested in what's happening, but you should really be listening to what's being said. And I think that's what mainstream music is lacking right now.
Yeah, and you know, the way we do folk music, we could learn from a little of the fun that goes into the performance of beats. and of hip hop music. So when you see a hip hop show, the thing that sort of struck me when I first started doing this was they're just playing the song and singing over the song. And Milli Vanilli got in trouble for lip syncing, but they're not lip syncing, right? They're singing over the song. And it actually is kind of cool because what they end up doing is it sounds like reverb, because they're singing with themselves.
Right.
And it adds another layer of it, which, has been done in rock and roll and all other kinds of things. Peter, Paul, and Mary were doing it. I mean, James Taylor has this concert he did where he put a reel-to-reel player on and it had recordings of him singing the song that he played while he was playing live.
That's pretty great.
It's the same thing. It's just that with hip-hop, it's much less expensive than hiring a band.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to suggest to a lot of the people who are doing hip-hop is, why not hire the band?
Yeah.
Because it's good. And then you have more people to work off of. It's not you up there by yourself. I mean, because usually, a lot of people have dancers, right? And that's how they fill in the stage. But with a band, you don't really need that. You got the band.
But there are some hip hop acts that have live drummer,
Yeah.
and they're
They
really
do, yes.
exciting. To me, that's like super exciting.
Yes.
Right.
It's definitely a newer thing that's been happening more recently. I've seen with rappers, they're always accompanied by bands now, and it's so much better because you can feel the music. It's not there's no sound that gets lost when a regular audio is playing where it's pre-recorded. When it's live, you get that natural feeling, and everybody feels way more connected to the music.
And there can be mistakes.
Well,
Right.
yeah, because
Yeah.
even if someone can be a metronome as a drummer, and I played with some drummers who were just so great, right? But there's always going to be a slight variation, and it's going to be that humanness that's going to connect. So I think that live drumming, and maybe the people who were kind of turn their nose up at hip hop. I think it's the point that they don't listen to it first of all.
You guys, I just met somebody that's gonna blow your mind. All right, you gotta check out Gangster Grass.
Oh yeah, they're
Gangster
great.
Grass.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Gangster Grass. Well, they're here. I don't know if
Yeah.
you realized it, but they were here. They were doing the talk today about using streaming platforms because they've been very successful at it. And
They're fun.
it was amazing. This guy had this crazy banjo that he had made in Jamaica, and I was like, what? And then I saw his name, and I was like, wait a minute, you're Gangster Grass? Because there was a big there was a big NPR story about how not only are they doing music because they're a multiracial band and it involves doing bluegrassy Appalachian kind of music with spoken word, and they're also sort of going out into communities and trying to build dialogue between people. And I just thought that was just sort of really incredible sort of work. So they talked a lot about the segregation of music today, and got me thinking about it for the first time. And so, I mean, that is, talk about two musics that have been totally segregated, right? Despite the fact that the banjo is an African instrument, right?
Well, yeah, it's an African instrument.
Right,
But I think because those creators were physically segregated.
Yeah.
The white mountain
Right.
people and African Americans, they didn't interact socially as far as living in communities together. And that's what people need to do.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, people are freaked out because he's playing a banjo, or he made his own banjo, but yeah, it comes from Africa.
Right. And they're very aware of that, and
Yeah.
the work of people like Maehara Gibson and things like that, who are sort of really taking back the mantle of Americana or country music and showing what their African American roots are for this. I think this is really important work.
Valerie
June.
Yeah, she just blows my mind.
Yeah.
She's amazing. Have you heard her stuff? Oh,
Yeah,
you
you
gotta
would
check
love
her out.
her.
You would love
She has
her.
a really unique voice. She has a voice so she grew up. I think her father was African American. Mother was sort of white. What was Appalachian, and she went to church and things like that. And she actually sings out of her mouth a little bit
twangy,
like this.
yeah, she's got a
right?
twang, yeah.
And she's got a twang to it. And when I first heard her, I was like, who is she? Where does she fit? Because in my mind is kind of segregated musically too. All our minds. And I don't think it's an accident. I think these things were done purposely to, I mean, how else can you best oppress people? But by making sure that they feel as though they're distinct from one another, right? And what some of the most revolutionary things you can probably do is merge your music. I mean, in the beginning of New York, what's 5 Points in New York City, right? When you had Irish immigrants and descendants and African slaves together doing music together. I mean, there are stories about that. I just wish I would have been there to sort of like actually hear what they created.
That's
right?
amazing. Yeah.
So these things have been happening all the time. We don't hear about it on purpose.
Well, like in the Jazz Age, in New York City, there was the guys in Midtown were pushed up to Harlem, the black players who would really who were the real innovators. And they instituted these things called cabaret laws, which had a real effect on musicians decades later. Like when I was in New York City, before that all got repealed in the 90s.
Oh wow, up to the 90s.
Up to the 90s, if you had more than 3 pieces, you needed a cabaret law. So the number of clubs were very limited. And it was really tough if you were a young person trying to get a band together. And then after they repealed that, that was when places like Sidewalk Cafe and all these places, and the scene makers there, like Beck and Jeff Buckley, started coming up because there were places to play.
Right.
So musicians need places to play. So hats off to you for having a place to play and create, because that's what we need. Out in Austin, when I started playing again, I was going to this open mic at a place called Strange Brew that had the best sound system in town. They would have visiting artists that were amazing, but they had either a Sunday or Monday night open mic. You got to do one tune in a listening room. No one could talk. Great sound system, beautiful lights. You get up there and do your tune. And then if the person who was curating it liked you, she'd say, come back and you're going to be in my featured artists. And she'd put people together. And then we all started going to each other's gigs. Those are still some of my dear friends there in Austin because, we came in together. And you need those kind of scenes to nurture and that the artists can support each other, learn about each other, play with each other, share gigs. It's super important to have that kind of incubator thing. And, that place closed, a couple other places that were trying to do that, listening rooms closed. And then with real estate, so yeah, like these out of the way places, that you're talking about, that's, like you're saying, Calhoun?
Who's ever heard of Calhoun?
Well, I mean, my sister lived in Sullivan County, and there was nothing up there. She was like, why are you living here? This is behind it of nowhere. Yeah. But even when I was living in the Hudson Valley, Beacon was nothing, and then it became now you can't afford to live there.
Right. Well, Pete Seeger had something to do with that.
But no, that was even I was living there, and I was a musician, and there was literally for acoustic musicians, there was nothing in Beacon. There was not a lot, and it was after I moved away. I'm always the after I moved away person. But you need those kind of places. You need places where musicians gather, and then when the audiences come, they sense that it's genuine. This is really good because its creators are making something that's meaningful to them. And it reaches the audience. And granted, an open mic, not all of it's going to be great, but on the other hand, people meet each other and, kind of attracts and people create, with each other.
For sure.
I'd like to hear a tune from you.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Anything in particular? Do you want something in the somewhat protesty vein? I don't know.
How about Fight the Power by NWA?
Yeah, I ain't gonna be able to pull out.
Okay. No, whatever you have.
Okay, maybe I'll try this.
I'm so impressed when a guitar player can play harp because it's
well, you ain't heard it yet, so.
it's a great thing to have because then you have different sound coming in.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm just so impressed by your songwriting. I'm just really blown away by sort of your storytelling, your playing, your delivery. I hadn't heard you play before, so I'm just sort of really blown away. This song is called We, and I was sort of thinking about some of the things that we were talking about, reacting to sort of what's been happening in the world, and there's just so many things, and you just don't always know what to choose to write about. So sometimes we try to write about them all as much best we can. And you know, as musicians, I don't think songwriters, I don't think we even consider that we have the answers for all the things that are, you know, that are happening in our world. But I don't know, I just feel like the ability to sort of humanize other people's stories has got to be at the center, the core of bringing folks together, right? Which is why we're here, right?
Yeah.
Trembling child cries, mother's silver cross, every hope a sleepless night for the humanity we've lost. Tender arms of comfort here in the dark of the abyss. Is this who we become? Have we always been like this? Ooh. We could be anything we want to be. The light is in you. Light is in me. Bloodstained and bullet-ridden earth between bloodstained and bullet-ridden earth beneath our feet. Light another candle for the ones who no longer speak. Needles placed upon the neck of those who yearn to breathe. Who we become, who we will always be. We could be anything we want to be. The light is in you. Light is in me. Sprawled on subway platforms, huddled in the night. Ruins of our endless crusades, thankfully kept out of sight. Gleaming towers, their endless rise, so inscrutable, so cold. Is this who we become, or just what we've been sold? Could be anything we want to be. The light is in you. Light is in me. We could be
So this brings me, something just made me think of, in performing, that's what this show is really about. When we've been talking about genre, what happens when you perform for a club that has the wrong genre for what you're doing? Because I've done it several times. So I wouldn't go so far as say like I'd go into a hip hop club with lights and everybody dancing and try to do folk music. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But I have been in some situations where like there's an open mic and it's kind of mixed what kinds of music. So there's a rock band and there's a hip hop artist and then you get up, what do you do? And what are some strategies you would see? Because I'll tell you my experience. Last month, I went to a place in Lawrence, Massachusetts called El Taller. El Taller. I can't roll the R very well. But it's basically everybody was doing hip hop except me. It was either hip hop or poetry. And then I got up and what am I supposed to do? There's one other guy with a guitar. Everybody else is doing a track. So I got up and I did the only thing I could think of that everybody would know, Yellow Submarine. Because how hard is it to learn the chorus to Yellow Submarine? And they all learned it in 2 seconds, and we
They
did,
sang along.
and many of them knew it actually. And then I even had people in the back going da 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 da, you know, and so the different parts of Yellow Submarine. So that's how I dealt with it. The other way I've dealt with it is I use material like Harry Belafonte, Deo, right? You can scream at the beginning of that song, that gets anybody's attention. You know, you do the big Deo yell at the beginning, you know, and then, I'm not gonna demonstrate because it's really loud. But the other technique that I've used is to just play one song that I do over and over and over for the same audience until they get it, which I think is the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
If you have the time and if you have the persistence to do that. So what do you guys have as experiences like that?
I don't know, like, for a while there I was playing up the shrine, that's sort of like, what's that, 130?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's been there for a while, right? And I don't know, I guess they play all kinds of music there, but it's mostly African.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's run by, I think it's actually Jewish owned.
I
think
was
it's
booked to
run-
play there, but it was
Yeah.
COVID year.
Yeah. But they play all kinds of music, but it's primarily for African music.
They have a
You
blues
know.
night, I think.
Oh, do they? Yeah.
Yeah. A friend of mine is.
But when
curious.
I don't know, I was there playing a couple times, and you know the audience would, you know, not necessarily look like what you see at NERFA, but you know, I think people sort of respond to music done authentically,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, I mean, I might not take it to the Apollo Theater for, I might not do that because I might not last very long, but, you know, certainly at the Shrine, I mean, those folks weren't necessarily, they were definitely not folkies, but they could hear stories about people experiencing hard times, and, you know, they were like, you know, I didn't feel as though I was at all unwelcomed. I felt like they were willing to. It might not be the music that they sort of will go home and suddenly decide they want to listen to all the time, but they were certainly receptive, and I find that's one of the things I like about New York City.
Yeah,
is,
that is the great
when
thing
I'm
about New
busking
York.
in New York City,
Yeah.
when I'm playing on the subway, all kinds of people drop money in my case. You know what I mean? All kinds of people. It's not, you know, New Yorkers appreciate music.
They really do, yeah.
You know,
And I think
and-
you'd be surprised too. It's like, you know, if you're in a situation like that where everybody is playing, you know, people are playing different things. I always find, you know, I try to tailor whatever I have because I'm usually there to play original music, not covers. I have songs that are a lot more. I'm not going to play my most heartfelt, folky song. Like I might not play that song that I just played before, but I might play something that has more of a driving beat that's going to get people's attention because I can do that because I used to play in a rock band, so I know how to, I have a couple tunes like that. And just something that's a strong song, but it's going to get their attention, and then they're going to listen. It's going to be a little bit of a common thread that that's going to draw them in to listen. I mean, I've played also places out in Texas that are like stone country places, and I don't play my protest song that I played at the Woody Fest songwriting, thing, about dreamers and Mexican immigrants. I don't play that always too. If I know, I might play something that they're going to hear and relate to a little bit. Now maybe through that they might look on Spotify and hear my other stuff and they might say, So I think I don't change for my audience, but I try to find a way to like kind of draw them in through maybe a common thread that's going to catch their ear a little.
We have to win them over before they'll listen to anything else.
Well, yeah, and I think just like, I mean, if you look at some of the really most all-time popular artists, they had all really varied audiences. I mean, even people like Louis Armstrong years ago, and he started out playing on the streets of New Orleans, and then you just look at different people, and they had Harry Belafonte is a good example. Crossover artists. What drew people in? Well, it was the strength of their material, and their delivery was original, and they had really strong songs. So it wasn't just people like New Yorkers respond to great music. The rap on New York audience is always, they're so tough, they're so etc. But I remember once going to Irving Plaza to see an artist, and the guy opening up was this guy from Nashville. I think he's from the Carolinas actually, Matt King. He got up there, he's got real twang, him and a guitar, and he started playing this song called American Dream. It's about how blue collar, striving people are just, cut out of things and are going lower and lower. And he's up there, and the whole audience, it was like, big audience, they just shut up and just listened to this guy with a guitar and then gave him a standing ovation and listening to every song. So New York audiences, I think they get a bad rap because they just they'll talk through an opening act that's terrible because they're like, oh, this is bad, why should I listen? But
I was thinking about something that somebody at my friend's bar in Calhoun, he once gave me a bit of advice because up there it's sort of like you get a real mix of sort of like, you got the hippie types, you got sort of like, you got your MAGA Republicans, you have sort of like all manner of folks that sort of come and will end up at the bars, in Calhoun, because that's where you go. And sort of like, I tend to write political songs, songs that have that kind of, that's just who I am. But it was interesting. My friend Brewster, who owns it, never told me not to play those songs.
Right.
Never once. What he said was, you might want to let the song speak for itself, Lucas. Let the song speak for itself. Maybe don't necessarily give a big introduction to the song. Maybe just say, hey, this song is so-and-so. Thanks for listening, da-da-da-da. And let the song itself, if the song is sort of...
That's a great point.
And I just thought that was also sort of like something that maybe we need to trust audiences a little bit more. Maybe they're actually, because the stereotype is, oh, everybody's on their phone, it's TikTok, we got, 3 seconds before everybody loses interest. But I don't know, I also feel like maybe people want more, and they just haven't had the opportunity to experience it.
You were performing with different audiences in that you did Star Spangled Banner with the mayor or something? Or?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you've been asked to do some things in Lawrence that are very different. So you performed at a club, right. And you performed at One Broadway, a listening room, and you performed at, was it Veterans Day or Memorial Day?
Senior Center.
Senior Center.
They were having a meeting with the state rep.
Right. And so you got to show off Lawrence by doing Star Spangled Banner. What do you do to prepare for the different performances?
I basically go over what songs I'm performing and the emotion linked with those songs. It differs, depending on where I go. But yeah, it's not really that hard. It's just, when you see people, you can pay attention to their reactions when you're performing and the vibe that you get when you enter a room. It's really not that hard for me to tell anyway. So when I get up there and I perform, I experiment usually. So let's say I have a song that I'm performing that the crowd doesn't like. If they don't like that, I'll move on to a song that, let me try this.
Mm-hmm.
It's trial and error sometimes, but most of the time you can get off of a vibe.
Yeah, and you guys are talking about the same thing. The vibe.
Reading the room. Yeah. And I mean, I think you have to do that as a performer, because like sometimes painful things I've seen is someone get up like at an open mic and maybe they're not that experienced and they have their song that they're going to do, come hell or high water, and they get up and it's really the wrong song for, like, it's a very quiet song and it's a bar and everyone's talking. And, sometimes you just need to be able to shut people up with a song, and maybe it has to be something with a little more of a beat that's going to cut through. But I think it's important I don't think you have to change yourself. But there's definitely songs that when I'm playing like out at kind of a more conservative redneck bar out in there's songwriters things that I go to out in areas of rural Texas that I just know I'm not going to lead off with this one song because then they're not going to listen and it's like. Or like you said, I'm just not going to do an intro, So maybe I'll I was playing at this place in New Mexico, and I did Dreamers, and this guy was listening, and he got up and walked out. And I'm like, hey, you can't win them all. Everyone else is just sitting there listening. And I think if a song is a good song, maybe they won't agree with it, but maybe they'll say, well, one of my biggest supporters is a songwriter. He's a very successful songwriter. He was in Nashville and had a lot of hits. He and I politically are so far apart, but we respect each other. He's championed me to people because he really likes good songwriters. And to him, he doesn't care, that what my politics are or what, and I don't really, we just don't talk about that because it's like we meet where the music is. So I think that's a good, just play the song sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should close off with one song from each of you. How about that?
Okay.
So since you played last, I guess Claudia, you go first.
Well, maybe I'll do something totally different then.
Okay. Yeah, read the room.
I'll do something with more of a beat then, maybe. I don't know. Let me just tune up though.
I was just listening to Jonathan Colton, who's a singer. He's a singer-songwriter, but he's amazing. He does really funny stuff. And he did.
I wish I could write funny songs.
Yeah. Well, all he did was he took the song by Sir Mix-a-Lot, "Baby Got Back," and he made it a folk song, and it's hilarious. And that kind of thing, if you can just read the room, I guess, a little bit, and you push that on them, and they'll get it.
Well, I guess I'll do a song that maybe I would do if it was a rowdy crowd.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Get their attention.
This one's called Rain. I'll give a very brief introduction to it. I found out that a singer who I admired for years had passed away, and it was, I felt horrible. It was a beautiful day where I was sitting at home out in the Texas Hill Country at the time, and all of a sudden I found out about it. And I was just like, my mind was blown. I felt very sad, and this big black rain cloud just came over and poured, And then later on, I wrote this song. Blue skies have turned to black, and you ain't coming back.
all it does is rain, isn't it?
Rain, yeah, it's
Oh,
called
just rain.
rain. Just rain. Just rain.
I love it.
Today it wasn't, but that's good.
That's true. It's a beautiful day.
It was beautiful.
Here in Asbury Park, New Jersey. What's this called?
So this is a song about growing up as a kid in South Philadelphia. I grew up in 700 block of South Street in Philadelphia, and I sort of remember it was a real community. You know, I think that's the sort of difference from today. It was sort of like, it was a poor neighborhood, and yet at the same time, you know, there were so many people out on the stoops, people out on the street, you know, and everybody was looking out for kids. So that gave us a certain amount of freedom that unfortunately kids can't necessarily have all the time now. But even in the inner city, you know, I had such an incredible amount of freedom to sort of like run around and, you know, just be a little whatever it was, you know, and you know, your parents basically expected you to go outside, and if you were not outside, there was something wrong with you.
Wow.
And sometimes they tell you to go
Yeah,
outside.
go out.
You know, it's sort of like, what do you mean? You're not staying here.
Come home at lunch, come home at dinner.
You know, and that was basically it. And
Yeah, the
so-
lights come on, come home.
So this song is called "Where the Day Goes," and it's dedicated to my best friend growing up, whose name was Nate. On Bainbridge Street, where we meet, the shattered windows in August heat, like Odysseus and his mighty crew, through the side streets and alleyways, we flew. All the coins we take, Franklin's grave, jump the old brick wall, metal fence, we buy hot dogs and a cherry shake. What could a nickel to a dead man anyway? When the day goes and the sidewalk ends, when the night falls on these dead end streets and where thoughts go and our dreams begin, that's when I know. When the cops were gone, and the hiding song went back to a dark room. So-called cars running barefoot, dancing through the flood. We just skin and bones, flesh and blood. There's a man shoe, lucky too. Y'all can kill an old Mama Duke. Two outfits leaving Nate. Was little Tony's fate? Was this all just a dream made with faith? When the day goes and the sidewalk ends and the night falls on these dead end streets and where thoughts go and our dreams begin, that's when I know we'll meet again.
great. I really enjoyed speaking with all of you.
Oh.
And
Thanks
Taina,
for
thank you
having
for joining us in the middle of the show. And Claudia, do you have some social media or websites you want to announce so that people can find you?
Yeah, ClaudiaGibson.com, so that's pretty easy.
Okay.
And Claudia Gibson Music on Facebook and on Instagram. And I'm going to be putting up more stuff as going into February with album release. And so, yeah, that's going to be exciting. So I'm looking forward
Okay.
to it. I just got my master's last week. So.
Oh, wow.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
In what?
Pardon?
In what?
No, master's, like master's.
Oh,
I thought you had your master's
those
degree.
I got a
Yeah.
master's degree years ago, but
In-
nothing to do with music.
Okay, never mind. Your master's.
My
She's
master's,
a
my
master.
recording
The
master's.
recorded master's,
Yeah, yeah. So
Um,
that's more exciting to me than actually getting the piece of paper.
Right. You get a reproducible object.
Yeah, and hopefully, every time you record, you learn something. And what I learned from my first two ones is you need to have publicity behind your release. So we did a Kickstarter, and it was successful. So now I can pay my wonderful publicist to do his thing soon. So that's exciting.
So Taina, do you have some that you want to mention?
Anything I want to mention? EP movie coming soon. And also folk album coming soon. So next time we're at one of these folk events, it should be done by then. So
Where can you hear your music?
you can hear my music on any platform: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, any streaming, and it's Taina, all caps, Taina.
You can't hear the folk stuff yet.
Yeah,
But the other stuff.
not yet. Yes.
That's exciting.
All right. Cut that part. Yeah.
For sure.
And Lucas.
Yeah,
So
so
what's your social media?
at Lucas Maehara Music, and on Instagram, Facebook. I also have a website, lucasmaehararotman.com.
You better tell us how to spell
Yeah,
that.
I know. I'm sorry. Maehara, and then Rotman is ROTMAN. .com, and you can from there you can connect to all my music that I've done with the Melodic Minors, that I've done sort of like solo, and I do also have my masters as well. And today I was listening to
In what?
I'm sorry, in education, but
Yeah.
also the other masters,
music
with the
masters.
music masters as well.
We both have both. I got a master's
Yeah.
in education
Yes.
too. so
Me
there you
too.
go.
Oh really? Look at that. We're all masters here.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you, Tiny? You should have a master's in
I'm 20.
Yeah, she'll be a
I'm not
master
there
soon
yet.
enough.
That's
She'll be
right.
soon enough.
I'm actually leaving my education job at the end of this year, forever.
Oh,
so
interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
very excited.
I just retired after 30 years.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
No, I only had 14.
Yeah.
So.
So I'm looking forward to releasing new music for the first time in probably about 10 years, and that's why I went to the program they had today on sort of like streaming and sort of like how to sort of create a plan for that. So I'm actually working on the plan right now. I have the music, working on the plan to sort of release it in the coming year. So.
Well, this has been a great episode. Thank you all.
Doing it this whole time.